Hey Joe fans, I'm JoeFan82 here with another action figure review. This one is a history making video where I am looking at my first 6-inch G.I. Joe figure. This is Duke from the new Classified series line from Hasbro. We've got a nice window box showcasing the figure, very similar to the other 6-inch figures from Hasbro. Here he is, it's for ages 4 and up. You've got the figure, the accessories. There is some artwork here that is okay. I'm not a huge fan of this artwork being showcased for Duke on the packaging, but there it is. And the G.I. Joe Classified Series logo. Notice no red, white, and blue. This is no longer an American hero. I believe they're trying to go for an international fighting force with this line. Here's the back of the box, and I really like this artwork. I like the style. Personally, I really like it, and I like how it showcases all of the characters we're seeing up front in the first wave, plus some other ones that I assume we'll be seeing pretty soon. Something I thought was very interesting about this artwork is the amount of vehicles that are showcased. This is not going to be a vehicle heavy line. This is 6 inches. We'll be lucky to see a few small vehicles, and that's it. So quite interesting to see all of those here. This is the side of the box. Duke is figure number 4 for some reason. I thought he would have been number 1. But this side, the shiny plastic goes around the side, so it's a little bit shiny there, which looks nice. And here's the other side with some more of that similar style artwork that we saw on the front. While I was editing, I realized that the side of the box here has a couple things that I didn't notice while I was filming, and I just took a freeze frame to show you. There's a couple symbols here that sort of highlight facets about Duke's character. We've got some military, what could be some military honors there on the top, and then some bullets, possibly symbolizing his adeptness with different weaponry. And next looks like a parachute, which maybe is talking about his bravery and willing to put himself in harm's way to get into the thick of the action. And the last symbol there is a chess piece, maybe symbolizing his tactical mind. So I thought that was really interesting that we see these symbols here. I didn't notice that at first, but this seems like maybe something they threw in because there are no file cards with these figures. There are no dossiers, there's no really character info at all on the packaging or inside. So this is as close as we're going to get these symbols here. And here's the figure out of the box, and he's looking pretty good. He is, of course, based on the vintage figure released in 1983. There are some design elements that have been carried over, and this is one of the classified figures that more closely resembles their vintage counterpart. And I think he's looking very nice. The sculpting looks great. Let's take a closer look at the figure. His head is very nicely done. Something that you'll find with 6-inch figures is the detail is magnified over what you would find on smaller scale figures. For example, look at his hair. You can see the texture in his hair there. Really nicely done. A really good sculpt. And this is a little bit of a younger Duke. I've seen some people say he looks a little young to them. He's got a scar, a very faint scar on his right side of his face, above his eye. My figure has a little smudge on this shirt there. Not sure where that came from, but it's got a little issue there. He's got some red straps here on the top. I'm sure there is a proper name for them. I don't know what it is, but they're on the top of his uniform, of his shirt. He's got his strap here similar to the vintage one, but it's got some techie stuff there on the top and some green pouches. It goes all the way around, more sculpting here on the back. And you can take it off. It is removable. Just put his arm up and over it goes. Pretty easy. And I'm okay with this being a little loose. I mean, it's kind of loose. It's not really meant to be static on him. However, we get down to the belt, and I have an issue with the belt. I'm not a huge fan of loose belts like this. I feel like it would be just as good having it sculpted onto the figure. His shirt is a button-down, mustardy, yellow, tan kind of shirt, similar to other versions of Duke that we've seen, with the hunter green there on the top. And then on the back here of his belt, we've got some very tiny binoculars. I don't know if these are based on any real-world piece of equipment, but they're very tiny and a little bit. They don't look like old-school binoculars. They're newer, and we'll take a little look at those later. I have an issue with this red on his gloves. This seems like an afterthought to me. It looks like somebody just painted red paint on his gloves. I mean, obviously it's red paint on his gloves, but it doesn't look like it's a part of the glove, and it just looks off to me. I think they would have been just fine keeping it all brown. He's got an orange watch on his left wrist, and on his left elbow he has a silver elbow pad with a line of light blue, which we saw up on his strap there across his chest on the top. The little blue highlight, which kind of continues throughout the figure. You see it again on his belt. And he's got some nicely sculpted, nice texture on his pants. These are light green with some dark green highlights or accents. He's got a hip-mounted pistol holder there. And down here we have the most controversial aspect of these new figures is the gold armor. These are gold and silver, and they do not go all the way around. They are strapped on the back. You can see some straps there holding them in place. These are a little softer plastic. I think feels like they're glued on. You might be able to just pull these off, but I'm not sure what's underneath them. It might not look so good if you did that. But here they are. I'm not a huge fan of the gold. I think it would look better with silver or the gunmetal gray. But yeah, and the dark green straps on the back. So yeah, these are the one kind of unifying theme with some of the figures is this gold armor. And he's got some brown shoes, which are nicely sculpted, some nice detail on there on the side, and then on the top you can see the laces there. It's articulation time. If you're not familiar with 6-inch figures, there is a bit of a difference between the smaller scale figures. His head is on a ball joint, and it's got some movement there and some nice up and down movement, and he can move around side to side and pretty much do a full 360, but some nice range of motion on the head. The shoulders are a bit tight. The joints in general are a little tight right out of the package, so just be a little careful when you're first moving them. His shoulders do a full 360. He's got a arm swivel there where the shoulder meets the bicep, and that moves around like so. He's got double jointed elbows. And he can do a 360 at the wrist. Now you might notice, his neck also, I forgot to mention, the bottom of the neck has a joint as well, which I've seen on other non-Hasbro figures and it doesn't look so good, but here it seems to be working pretty well. It just gives him a little bit of extra movement there. Down we've got the infamous cut that we see on 6-inch figures. It breaks up the sculpt. It adds a little ab crunch, so opinions vary on how good that is. But he has also got another point of articulation right there at the waist, which is nice. I guess that's a ball joint. I haven't popped it open to see, but I'm guessing it's a ball joint. Pretty nice range of motion there. And he's got his legs come up about this far. His right one is kind of blocked from his gun, but they come up like that, 90-degree bend there, and there's a cut right at the thigh, a joint right at the thigh that you can almost miss if you don't pay close enough attention, but there it is. It's pretty nicely disguised. He's got double jointed knees and another joint here at his calf, right where it's very nicely disguised, where his armor is, where the straps are, is where the articulation is. And his feet separately do not do a full 360, but they are rocker feet, so you can get a little more dynamic stance. And I almost forgot to mention there was another joint that I almost missed here on the wrist. He can bend his right hand up and down like that, and his left hand has the joint going in the opposite direction, sort of a sideways articulated point there. And he's also got another point right at where the shoulder meets the chest, where his pectoral muscles are, and that just gives another little range of motion there for his shoulders. Mine's a little more active there on his right side, but another point of articulation there. So in general, the classified series figures are shying away from real world type weapons, so I'm not sure if this is based on anything in the real world, but it's a nice sculpt. It's a little bit futuristic. It's dark gray and gold there on the top with that light blue highlight continuing that we saw on the figure, and he holds it very well. I like this gun. I think it looks pretty good. And he's got a smaller handgun, same color, same dark gray and gold on the top. You'll notice his trigger finger actually goes where the trigger finger is supposed to, and same thing with his bigger rifle there, but that's a nice touch. He holds 6-inch figures hold their weapons for the most part very well. Here's that small set of binoculars, and this is the best as I could get him to hold it, but I think it looks okay. And he comes with this backpack, really a throwback to the vintage figure. It pegs into his back like that. Nothing really futuristic about this backpack. It's two colors. I think it would have benefited from another paint app. He's got an entrenching tool, looks like some canteens and some pouches. Nicely sculpted, very nice detail on the sculpt. It's a solid piece, not hollow inside. Just a nice solid backpack. Here is a size comparison with a Marvel Legends Forge figure from the X-Men and a modern Duke figure from the Pursuit of Cobra line. And as you can see, he matches up pretty well with Marvel Legends and other 6-inch figures, not so much with the 1/18th scale figures, however. I've had a couple people ask me about head swapping with other 6-inch figures from Hasbro. So far, I would have to say that it doesn't really work out so well. Like here's Forge's head on Duke. It doesn't really go. It's just that the hole is too, and his head is too big. It kind of flops around there, and I believe the ball joint on Forge is a little too big for the Duke. I'm afraid to push it all the way in there. I don't want anything to break. So as of right now, I don't think they are swappable. This is a very solid figure. I really like him. The sculpt is great. Articulation is great. There are a few nitpicks here and there that could be improved upon, maybe some additional paint apps. One thing I really like is that all of his accessories fit on him. He has storage. He can hold everything, storage for everything. You don't have a pile of accessories to put in a bag somewhere. So I like that. And articulation, you can get in some really dynamic poses like you see here. If you're on the fence about the 6-inch line, I recommend at least trying this figure out. Give it a try. I think you will like it. So that's my look at the brand new G.I. Joe Classified Series 6-inch Duke figure. The first 6-inch G.I. Joe figure review here on the JoeFan82 channel. History in the making. You'll be able to look back years from now and say, I remember where I was when I first saw JoeFan82's first 6-inch review. But seriously, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think about this figure in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, so you can make sure to see all of my future videos where I'll be covering the rest of the G.I. Joe Classified Series figures. Thanks for watching again, and I'll see you next time.